Welcome to the Govcon Giants podcast, episode number 57, Eli Smith. Today's episode, we feature our guest, Eli Smith, the son of a Black Panther, following 2 weeks of racial tension and protests across America after the death of Mr. George Floyd. I thought this would be the great episode to follow, considering that Eli Smith, a Black business owner, has not only built one successful business, but he's built multiple successful businesses across the country. And he's changing the idea of what people view Black Americans as in terms of their success and in terms of what we can accomplish despite all obstacles. Eli Smith, E. Smith Contractors, SGTR, he is now also, in spite of everything, building his own development in Syracuse, New York, on what was formerly a waste-ridden site. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode as we transform the minds of people. We share with him the story of how he found his partner and how various programs helped change his life and shape who he is. On top of all that, we talk about race because, again, this is the time that we're dealing with in the situation at hand. This may be difficult for some people to hear, but it is a candid conversation, and I think that it needs to be heard. Mr. Smith talks about how when he started his company, cleaning out basements in New York, the only people that would work for him were people of color, were felons, were people who needed sometimes second, third, and fourth chances. I think we all could use an extra chance. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments and show notes below. Thank you so much for watching Govcon Giants podcast. Our next giant, Eli Smith. So, it's a different conversation now, which I actually enjoy because people want to know what's happening now. What are we doing now? What's the marketplace? What does it look like, right? And so I know you, particularly your business, I know you were concerned when they started closing things down in New York. Mm-hmm. That impacted you. And I know you're working on a new development that you got going on. So, yes. I'm sure you probably were worried at first as well.
100%. So when this, first off, thanks for being a great interviewer too, because I get interviewed at least 2 or 3 times a week. I'm doing something like this, and I find when it becomes a conversation, that's the best interviewer, moderator, to do
right.
it. But last week I did an interview with someone. It was almost like she was reading from a script, and then she forgot where her place was, so she kept looking over here, and then she looked over there, and so I was just like, okay, this, and then it'll be dead silence as she would think about the next question. So. Thank you for just making this.
No, I'm drinking my Gatorade.
Yeah, you got to.
Gatorade's my sponsor. Listen, I have a good. I enjoy. I think I'm not being forced to do this, right? I'm volunteering to do this,
right?
So I want to have a good time and I want to learn from it,
right?
Okay, and so that's the best thing. And what they say is, if I have questions, right, someone else has those same questions. So again, if you answer my questions, then you've likely answered some questions from other people out here that are listening as well.
Right.
And that's kind of where, the way it goes. So, hey, look, I want to know, hey, man, how this guy got development going on, and so you start asking this kind of questions.
So let's talk a little bit about COVID first, right? So then we can go back to how I got in business. So when COVID first hit, in upstate New York and in New York, I was, I'm very community driven. So I'm on the board with the Boys and Girls Club. So there was already some chatter going around, like, what's this new coronavirus going on? And like, how are we going to fight this? So a week before I shut the office down, I was getting more and more emails and watching CNN and all the different news stations. And I was like, this thing is going to be more serious than what they're on to. So I actually shut the office down a week before Governor Cuomo said we're going 100%, no business, non-essential businesses cannot be working. So, right before that, almost like I was a fortune teller, but I'm not. But I was just like, let's just take time to work from home remotely. So all my project managers, my estimators, we all set up to work remotely. And then when it hit, the impact of it, and we're still living in that moment in time. Like, it affected everyone. Like, I believe, the first couple of days, everybody was like, oh, this is cool, we're working from home. But after that first initial week, and we saw the cases going up, and then up here in New York, they were showing bodies that were being brought out the hospital, and they couldn't bury them fast enough, right? So they were actually being put in the trucks, freezer trucks, and it was so scary. So every week we have our management call, and I was really I'm never at a loss for words. So I'm the leader of a company, and as the leader, you always got to have a direction on where you're going to take people and what they can expect. But I remember sitting in those meetings for like 3 weeks and saying to people, like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how the company is going to react, recover from this if we're shut down for long periods of time. And one day turned into 3 days, 3 days into 10 days. And it just continued to gain momentum. And everybody was just like, this isn't ending anytime soon. And then when Governor Cuomo says, only ones that could work is, essential construction companies that are doing, work that is considered essential, which is hospitals or basically, for any kind of home construction, for affordable housing, those kind of projects we're able to go in. Also, any education projects he allowed to go to, some education projects. So we do a lot of work through Fortune for also, besides in the federal market, my company does a lot of work for McDonald's, Bank of America, as a general contractor, Chase, those kind of things. So, I went from, having 100% of my staff that was working, now we're down to like 8% of my staff working. And so everything just got tight, it got shut down, and it was really for a period of time where we were just like, what's going to happen? So, that was just the scariest part. We're still coming out of it now, and everybody's almost back to work, but, it's ramping back up very slowly at this point in time.
Wow. Yeah, no. And you said it's ramping up. So when did they allow you to start, basically going back to work and bring people on? At what point?
It was about 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks, I would say. You started seeing people having protests, and not outside. They weren't protesting. Right. There was a couple protests out, in front of City Hall. Well, most of the people were protesting through social media, right? Okay. Saying Cuomo is just what's this government trying to do? That we're essential, all businesses can work. And they had some good points, some of them did, because they're like, how can you go to Walmart or Target, but a small business, a mom and pop store can't be open, but you can still go to, Walmart.
No, I mean, that's a valid point, right? Why do the big guys get to stay open?
Right. Why do they get to stay open, but we can't? And essential businesses, and then you see other businesses that are going out, like in JCPenney's. And one thing I could say about Cuomo, he handled all the fire. Like, he was a true leader. Like, I had respect for him before, but the way he handled this whole coronavirus, to me, it was top notch. Like, he gave clear direction and explained to everybody what the statistical data was showing and what we could expect. So it was to answer your question, it was about 3 weeks ago when he started the phase 1, right? He said, okay, phase 1, all construction can ramp back up, and of course, you're in the business. Construction, just because he said it's going to ramp back up, it doesn't start immediately, because you still have vendors and suppliers, and you still have to get used to everything, get everybody. And then the other thing that I ran into a problem, Eric, was a lot of companies are trying to get the employees to come back to work because they're making so much money sitting at home. That's another issue.
I remember thinking that, and we had some debates and had some very engaged debates about what is the cutoff, right? At what point does it become worth it to stay home versus go back to work?
Right. And so some people are making like $1,200 sitting at home. Right? And more than they ever made in their life. And they're just like, or they're making the same if they came into the office. And they're just like, so I had some people, I was just like, listen, you got to come back to work or else, and then they the majority of people just came back with no issues, right? But I heard horror stories of owners trying to get their people back. And I was like, well, I'm glad that didn't happen, with me, except for a couple of people. But besides that,
Okay. No, it's interesting. And now you have 2 companies?
Yeah. So one of my companies is SGTR, and that's the federal company. That's 8A and HubZone.
Okay.
I actually have 3 companies because I'll tell you about that right now. So, and then another company of mine is E. Smith Contractors.
Right.
E. Smith Contractors is a general contractor. Also, we do CM work and CM at risk.
Right.
Well, I have offices in 2 offices in upstate New York, one in Syracuse, and also another one up in Watertown. Then I have another office in Washington, D.C. So we're working all over the East Coast, all the way up and down, and we're looking at opening up a 4th office in Charlotte, North Carolina by the end of this year. That's what the goals are. So when the COVID hit, this is another company I just started, and I was sitting at home because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was like, what else can I do? And so I ended up starting a medical coding and billing company, which is, already taken off total medical administrative services. So we got that up and running. We're working with Advanced MD, looking at physicians and getting their billing and coding. There's going to be so much work for us to do. So, I love startups. I love building something and making it become great and hiring from within the community. And then, that's where, and creating generational wealth, for my children.
I saw a post that you made where you talked about hiring from within the community, and you mentioned something along the lines of sometimes people need, 5th and 6th chances, 7th chances.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Can you, talk about that?
So in our community, right, in the Black and brown community, we all have people who we know that have, served time in prison or in jail for crimes.
My cousin actually just died in prison.
Crimes that now they're saying is legalized, right? And we know what those crimes are.
I just reposted it. I just retweeted a post from Elon Musk when he said that, and I'm so happy that some people like that has the notoriety. He says, wait a second. We became an essential business to stay open during a pandemic,
right.
But it was the same. But it was considered a felony a few years ago, and we have a lot of people that are still in prison for those charges. But it's an essential business now.
Right. But supposedly we play the victim role to some people, right? Or there's no systematic racism that's affecting us, right? But let's be real. We know that there is, right? And we know that there's always has been, right? So my father, before he passed away and years ago, he was a Black Panther, right? And so he used to always educate me and hit me with these mind-boggling questions like, just because somebody served time for doing something that they think isn't right does not mean that person is bad, right? And everybody deserves a second chance or a third chance. So when I was a startup company, and I started my first company, which was originally So Gone Trash Removal, as the only people who would come apply to come work for me was second-time felons, third-time felons, people that looked like me, right? And I was like, it was nothing for me to go ahead and hire them and say, listen. And most of those people who I hired are still with me to this day. We have an incredible team. And this team, they work hard. They put out quality work. And I'm just playing the coach, and I just put them in positions to succeed. But I believe that a good leader hires from within the communities in which they serve.
I like it. And how did you go from the trash removal company to the general contracting business?
So we gotta go all the way back.
And by the way, we can make this brief, and I'll tell you why. Because like you said, you're doing interviews all the time, and people can go look at your story other places. I just wanted to highlight it for other people because I definitely, I want to get into some other conversations. Look, I was able to find your story; they can go find it as well, right? So I'm not here to repeat the same questions over and over again.
Okay. So at the age of 13, my father, so I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and usually entrepreneurs have children that become entrepreneurs, and we are taught to, think creatively on how to create money and wealth and all that kind of stuff. So my dad was my father worked for Miller's Bottling, and he was a supervisor. And one day he just got sick of working every Saturday and Sunday. And he just said, I'm going to start my own business, right? So I grew up in a mom and pop, mechanical company. So I was always in the construction field because that's what my father had. So at later on in my adult life, as I went to different careers, I always would go back to my father. I worked for different Fortune 500 companies. I knew I always had that entrepreneurial spirit because something just wasn't right. I didn't know what it was, but I was just like, this ain't right. And what I mean by this, I never understood why you only could get 2 weeks vacation when you started a job, right? Why you had to work 5 days a week. Like, why can't we work 4 days a week? Or why can't we work, 3 days or 6 days a week? Like, who dictated we had to work a 5-day work week? So I was just like, you know what? I worked for a job for like 3 or 4 years, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to turn my resignation because I feel like I can't grow. I felt like restricted in my growth. I did not know the whole time I was thinking, or I was really saying I needed to become an entrepreneur and carve my own path to success. So what happened was when the construction, or not the construction, but when the economic downturn happened in 2007, 2008,
Yep.
It happened. And so companies are going out of business left and right. In 2011, I started my first company. And, I was laid off at that time from my father's company. And that's how I started. So I remember watching, what happened was, it was like this, like a snap of the finger. I was watching the Oprah Winfrey show, and she had a guy on there that owned the company Got Junk.
Yeah.
And he explained how he started with a pickup truck. And now today, at that time, he was in 3 different countries doing about $180 million a year. And that's, just a high school guy, just like I am. And I was like, what? That's not, I could do that same exact thing. I could go in somebody's home, get a landlord, clean out the attic or the basement. And that's exactly what my first company was. It was called So Gone Trash Removal. And that's exactly what we did. I got my buddy, I was paying him $20 an hour. I'd be like, let's go over here and clean out this attic. And that's how it grew. And from there, from there, just a year and a half later, I got my first general contract, or my first demolition job, from a residential customer who said, hey, can I tear down a trailer? And it just took off from there. We just continued to scale and just continue to grow the company from there. But it just from a grassroots, it just started very organically, and that's where it came from.
When did you decide to go the federal route? How far?
Federal route in 2018.
Oh, so recently?
Yeah, recently. So,
man, okay.
Yeah, because I did, one thing I do all the time is read, and I ask a lot of questions. So I look at the most successful companies, and I was like, and I realized that when I spoke to the project managers or the owners of those companies, some of those gentlemen would say, listen, we was in the 8A program, or we were in the Hub Zone program. And then they say, but don't get into the program until you're ready to take that, take on all that responsibility and you have a great infrastructure or a great foundation in place. So I waited. I just waited and put it off until, I had the right team in place where I can pursue, those federal jobs. And then my first year after getting my 8A, we did a joint venture with another company, and we were selected to do an IDIQ. And it was a 5-year, $99 million IDIQ that we're still on up at Fort Drum.
Wow.
So it's just grown. It's just continued to grow. So
how did you find that company that you partnered with?
Through relationships. So okay. I'm good at, part of being good in business, I believe, is building great relationships. So we have a great relationship with my insurance company, who happened to do an introduction along with my bonding company to this gentleman named Eric Ames. And that's how, and to this day, he has been an incredible mentor to the success of our company and to where we're at today.
It's very interesting is that I did a post a few weeks ago about actually how I chose my accountant was because he could help me with those kind of relationships, right? And when I was choosing my accountant, my bonding company gave me a list and said, hey, okay, first of all, he told my books were garbage because I didn't have a construction CPA, which I didn't know what that was. And then he gave me a list of people to choose from. And I remember reading in a book, and it says, work with someone who's already worked with companies that are where you want to be at. So similar to your story, which is like you said, hey, what were these successful people doing that was right? That's the same thing. So when I chose my CPA, he had clients that were doing $20 million, $40 million a year. The guys own helicopters and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is this is a good, this is a good guy.
Right.
And ultimately, he's been with me ever since. And so that's a fascinating story.
And that's what you want. You want to have those relationships is really how you grow your company. As someone, so you spend money, right, with who we like.
Yeah.
Well, we will go across the street or drive 5 miles to spend money with someone who we have a relationship with.
Yes.
Right. And so relationships in business are everything, right? And it's something that college could teach you how to be the best architect or to be the best engineer. But that one skill that you can get and build yourself is how to, customer service and how to speak and how to communicate effectively with people that are the likability is what I call it, right? To be likable to whoever we're dealing with, right?
I love it. I love it. Wow. I didn't know that you were so recently cemented 8A.
Yeah.
Tell me about the development you got going on.
Yeah.
How's that come to play?
Part of that, I'm all about the generational wealth and building legacy and that. And so, as you know, we coming from our community, one of the biggest things that we have a problem with is we don't have anything in our community where we really own.
Right.
Up until recently, we're talking about buying back the block, but that's a phrase that really we're just starting to do, right, and trying to understand the development process. So I went to a 10 KSB through Goldman Sachs, met a developer there out of Washington, D.C., who is one of my partners on my first development deal. And we're actually now building a first ever in Syracuse. So Syracuse, New York is a great city, but one of the things it's known for is poverty, right? And so in the history of Syracuse, there's never been a Black developer ever in the history. So myself and my partner, Emmanuel Henderson and Gail, we're the first minority developer to date. So, great picture. There we are. So it's incredible that in 2019, last year, that this is the first time that in the city of Syracuse that a minority team and we're building a 5-story mixed-use building, which will incorporate everything from apartments to incubator space for businesses, to warehouse space, to light manufacturing as well. So, it's an exciting time. It's something that we're excited to do and be a part of.
How's a guy with no college degree work on a development?
Listen, it's one of those things like I just ask questions, right? It's like if you see something that you want, but you don't know how to get there, 9 times out of 10, I don't care what color the person is, if you ask the right questions, they're going to give you the answer on how they got there, right? And it's just what I did. I just said, listen, I want to do a development deal. How do I do it? I said to Gail, can you come to Syracuse and show me how to do this? And she was like, of course, right? And that's all it was. I just asked, and I'm learning as we're going through this whole process. And this is not going to be a one-off project. So I'm going to continue to do this. I love it. So I love the whole development piece and being able to own and give back and within the community and give hopefully young people, a chance to say, if he could do it with just a high school diploma, I could do that as well, right? I'm nothing. You just do it.
Right. Yeah. No, and I love that. That's the same way I feel all the time. I really do believe that. No, that's wonderful. I just recently learned that about you on the development. What other things do you have on the works that I don't know about?
So I'm writing a book. A book is being written actually about me through James Peterson, who a good friend of mine, Michael Eric Dyson, who we all know Dr. Dyson, who's on CNN, NBC, MSNBC, the well-known. So Dr. Dyson was like, he was like, Eli, somebody needs to know your story. And I was like, yeah, right. And he was like, no, for real. So he had his publicist reach out to me. So a book is being written about, just being a first generation entrepreneur, right? Even though I came from my father, but this is a first generation businesses that I have, and the perils, right? And the trouble that you go through from banking relationships to how to grow it, right? So we're going to, it's being written now, hopefully, someone can learn from it, and, doing a lot of public speaking as well. I'm this Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going in front of Congress and the Senate to speak about, COVID and how it's affected the Black community and the PPP loan and how many small businesses weren't able to access it. And there should be a second round of funding that should come through for small businesses. I'll be speaking to that and how that, it impacts us. Social change has to come with economic change as well. And we can't have one without the other. So I'll be speaking about that with our leaders in DC this
How
week.
did that come about?
That came out through Goldman Sachs. I was selected to speak, and so that's where it came about, was through them, my relationships with Goldman Sachs.
So that Goldman Sachs program turned out to be a really good one for you.
Oh, it's incredible. So everyone.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I actually turned down being part of that program. I'm now regretting it, listening to you come talk.
You better get on it.
I'm like, let me go. Can I get back in?
Yeah. The Goldman Sachs program is, so you have, for those that don't know, you have businesses from all over, small business owners from all over the country that I think it's less than 0.001% is selected. And they take aspiring entrepreneurs and they bring us together. And I went to, my cohort was actually in Babson. And so they had trainers there from Harvard and Yale, and that will come in and teach us for a whole semester on how to grow your business and how to, the things to look out for and what pitfalls. So what you find is that a lot of things that you're going through as an owner, someone else in another part of the country is going through those same, like, how do you do a great interview, right? Little things like, how come I can't retain my employees? Like, what's the issue with that? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I bought them pizza every Friday, but yet they're not thankful.
Right.
Like, well, maybe you shouldn't buy them pizza. Maybe you should do something else. Like, when is the right time to get a raise? Is it every single year? Or do you set your company up to do performance improvement raises if they're doing well, right? So there's things that I learned so many different things about how to be successful in business and how to manage by the percentage. Because that's another thing, like, when do you hire? Like, right. Some people ask those questions. Do I hire out of need, or do I hire
anticipation of
right, anticipation, right? So it's like they say, when you're hungry, you eat too much, right? Mm-hmm. But if you eat steady diets throughout the course of the day, you maintain, you feel better, and you're able to think more clearly. Same way in business, right? So
that's interesting. And listening to you talk, you got problems with the banks? They didn't give you guys a lot of money? I mean, you didn't walk into the bank and be like, look, Eli, how much you need to get started?
Yeah.
So we're going to write you a check.
So, and I'm not going to say the bank's name, right?
That's okay.
What I will say is this. We have trouble in our community, and I think a lot of small businesses do. I know a lot of small businesses do, especially in the construction industry, trying to get lines of credit, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember I was very successful. Had a great year one year in like 2014, 2015. Balance sheet, P&L was great. Yeah. Went to a bank, a community bank, where I had a relationship and was like, can I get a line of credit? Because, I'm doing a lot of prevailing wage work where, my payroll is like 20,000 to 40,000, like a broad range. Like, and it was, I need something. And so the gentleman was like, here, we're going to give you this. And I looked at it, and it was basically, and I was grateful, but it was only a $50,000 line of credit in construction, which you can go through that in a week like that. So it was constantly maxed out. So 2 years, the following year, I went back to him. I was like, listen, can you increase my line of credit? It's really starving me. My receivables are out, 60, 90 days. Even though I structured my contracts to get paid every 2 weeks, I did everything you told me to do, but I'm still not getting paid fast enough, right? So the revenue was great. My backlog was great. So I had everything that lined up, but for some reason, this particular bank was just like hesitant, right? So fast forward a couple more years, I still only had a $50,000 line of credit. I don't even know how I made it through. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? But on paper,
we have to live off our cash flow. You have to live off our cash flow. Which again, as a big company, they never do that, right? They get investments, they get funding, and they can grow out like wildly.
Right. Systematic, right? That's what we talk about. We got to break down, tear down the system, right? And so my accountant, I got, at that time, I got moved from the accountant I was with to a larger accounting firm. And he was like, Eli, how are you doing this? I don't know how you're living. I can't. I said, well, you can see I have no hair on my head, right? So, so he was like, listen, I have a bank. This is what we're going to do. We're going to shot put these to 5 different banks, and fill out 5 different applications for lines of credit. Short story is, within the first day, 4 banks of the 5 made offers for me to leave that original bank and come to them. And it was, the offer was like $750,000. So I went from a $50,000 line of credit to $750,000.
Something you needed
within 48 hours, right? And I said, well, let's go back to that one bank where I had a $50,000 line of credit and see what they said. And they were just like, they called my accountant and they was like, oh yeah, there's nothing we can do. We need his financials to be a little bit stronger. I was like, you know what? Forget them. Let's just go over here. But whatever reason it was, I can't worry about it. I just, the moral of that story is, sometimes we think that we have one relationship that we got to continue to go to that well. And I kept going to that well way too many times and without any return. And then once I moved my, to a different financial accounting system, team, and then moved to a different bank, and then everything from there just grew and has continued to grow since then.
Oh, that's a great story. Wow. That's great. What would you tell people that were, and again, you just made a good point, but again, a small business starting out, okay, like you said, you were 60 days, 90 days out. Mm-hmm. That's hard to deal with, right? How do people make it? What do you tell them? I mean, you said you're doing 2 or 3 days a week. What are you telling people out there? What kind of advice are you giving to them starting out?
So you got to have my project managers and my project coordinators are constantly sending emails to the companies that we work for saying, when is this money coming, right? So it's a concerted team effort. It's not one person who's asking about receivables. We are calling, we are emailing constantly saying we need to get paid. And one of the things that we never do is act like we have the money in the bank. No matter what's in the bank account, I'm always like, I need my money right now. Like, I don't want to wait on your money. The other thing I learned in this construction field, and I say this to everyone, is the key is to stop being a subcontractor. You have to get closer to the bag, right? As we call it, closer to the bag of money. Right. So being a construction manager, right? You're working for the owner. So we have multiple CM projects that we're doing at this time. That's the reason why I stopped. We're still a subcontractor. We still do demolition, selective and site demolition, as well as, carpentry jobs as well, some carpenter jobs. But we really are more focused on being a GC for multiple Fortune 500 companies where, we try to get them paid faster, right? Our subcontractors, but because we know what pain they're going through, right? So one hand has to wash the other hand. So we make sure that we work well with our subcontractors to try to get them paid faster, and we make sure that whatever company we work for, that we set out the terms in the contract that we expect to get paid within 14 days from the date of invoice. And they say no, or they have said no many times, and I just say this is not the right contract for us, right? Because I can't wait on my money. That's
Have you really? So you rejected people?
Oh, many times. You don't
want to wait? You don't wait 6 months for your money?
No more. Nope. We got to listen. No one's. I feel like this. Construction is the worst business model ever created. There's no other business that you can say, I'm going to do work today, but I'm going to pay you in 90 days or 120 days.
Hallelujah.
Where do they do that at? Like, there's no other business like that. You can't go to the grocery store and be like,
you can't buy iPhone
or Kroger, or be like, I'm going to pay you in 3 months. I'm going to pay you in September for the food I eat today. You know what I mean? You can't go to the dealership, buy a car, do that.
I'm going to tell you another one, which is interesting.
Yep.
When I was in, and this is, I think this is bad for me, but it may be good. Because when I was in college, I started a company, right? And I was like doing some technology app. This is before apps even existed. Okay, we were doing app. And it wasn't called an app, it just was called software. And we raised $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, our valuation was 300, we raised like 100 and change. But anyway, you're a kid, right? You're 20 years old. So you raised 100 grand. We lost all the money because it didn't work out. And the people said, no worries. The next time you have another good idea, come back to us and we'll give you more money. Then I get into construction.
Right.
And you make a mistake. And then people say, we're going to take $100,000 out of your pocket because you made a $5,000 mistake.
Right.
And you're like, wait a second. But I just made a $5,000 mistake. You're like, oh, no. It's worth $100,000 because it was $5,000 in cost, and then $10,000 in time, $25,000 in back office time, and I'm like,
they just tack it on.
They tack it on. So I agree with you because I don't think people have ever, if you've never been in that situation and you've never seen it, it's something else. I think that the structure is bad. The way that you even file, claims is bad. Like you put a lien on a project. You got to finish a project to make the lien back. I wrote an op-ed piece before that I never published because I was afraid that somebody might try to kill me because there's a building in California that was sinking, and they were saying that they're blaming it between the developers and the contractors. And I said, well, if you've ever seen any of those contracts, you'll know why that building is sinking. I said, because the guy that built that building can't tell the owner that it's wrong because the developer's got his contract says, if we don't get paid, you don't get paid. It was like a double-edged sword, so you stab yourself.
Right.
And I go, that's why that building is sinking because, but it's true, though. I agree with you on that. That's when you took me to another place when you said that.
There's a book out there called The Dog Whisperer, and the Dog Whisperer talks about different. Basically, there's a different code or different language that Washington D.C. speaks about. This guy, exploits and talks about. And one of the chapters in the book, he talks about construction, right? And he says that when slavery ended, that we did not know what we did not know, right? So they had set up contract terms, or there was contract language that basically, because the blacks couldn't read at that time, and they were put it in a contract that will say that you got to do X, Y, and Z. And basically slavery was still continuing on because these gentlemen would sign a contract, and yet the layman terms was that they couldn't even understand it or read it, what they were signing. So, and I said, man, I still feel like that. Sometimes I read some of these contracts, these guys put out to this.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So you'll see contracts that are like 30, 40 pages. You've seen them before.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like 90% of it has nothing to do with you think, until you go to collect your money, right, or until that contract or that project goes left, right? And then you're like, okay, then you give it to your lawyer, and he's like, oh, yeah, this is what they said. They covered their butt by putting this in there. They're going to charge these, fees.
Right.
But most states, especially in New York, and also in D.C. is big for this. D.C. is very small business friendly, right? So D.C., if you do a construction project in the District of Columbia, you have to get paid as a small business within 30 days, regardless if the general contractor has been paid or not by the owner. Sweet. So you're no longer having to worry about, if the
financing their job. You've already financed their project at the beginning by working and doing it, delivering the work before getting paid. So you finance them
right
up the rip.
Correct. So that's So obviously, that's that systematic racism that has affected our people, and as we talk about things about, even L. Sharpton talked about get your knee off my neck, right? Even financially, education-wise, or in healthcare, allow us to grow our businesses and grow our people. We're not looking for anything but an equal playing field, right? So that we can compete against them. So I'm asked this question a lot of time too. They're like, well, how do you know if you're doing a great job? Do you look at other companies, or do you look at this? I said, I never look at what another company is doing down the street, or what another company. I don't compare myself to a Gilbane or to a Turner or see any, because for one, it's never equal anyway.
No.
They had a head start that I could never catch up to, right? So how can you compare yourself? You only could, at the end of the day, when you wake up that morning, you just got to say, I'm going to do better than I did yesterday.
Yeah.
Forget what they're doing.
No, you can't.
Your team just has to do better than what you did yesterday or last month or last year and build upon that, right? Because we could never catch up. They had a 300, 400-year head start.
Right, sure.
So how can you catch them? You can't. It's impossible. So it helps keep me level, help keeps my team level. We're going to win every day. That's the way I look at it. We're going to win because every single day that we're in business, we're affording opportunities for other people that look like us, right? We are diversity and inclusion. I want to say this too. One of the things I'm most proud of, right, and being in business is being able to hire people that look like me and show what it really means to be inclusive. So when we have our company parties and people say, well, talk to me about your company. I call my company United Nations, right? Because I have people from Africa, I have people from Cuba, I have people from India, I have people from China, Jamaica, that all work for me, right? And so we are very inclusive. Our team is very like a melting pot of the best of the best, and it's just worked out that way, and so that's what helped me to be successful, is just bringing together a mishmash of everyone and saying, listen, this is what, and every single day they come in with a chip on their shoulders, right? Because somebody else might have told them, no, we're not going to hire you based on how you look. So everybody has a chip on their shoulder to exceed, to do well and win. And that's what I love.
I like that. I like that. I think that helps tremendously, man. That thing pushed me. That actually is what inspired me to do my YouTube channel and to give back and to give all this information for free away to people so that I could build them up. Because, what someone did to me and put their foot on my neck in business and tried to cause me to go bankrupt, while I was losing my breath, it then forced me to say, you know what, I'm going to elevate a whole bunch of people, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to rise up against you and all the other people that are just like you. And we're going to take you down, because at the end of the day, they're only winning because there's no one to challenge them.
Right.
And I know it. They're not a better company. They're not a great company. They do terrible work. Right. They're a terrible company. Not just in terms of in how they deliver and how they act.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they have no one to stand up against them. They have no competition. And today.
Right. But your kids, my kids, our grandkids are now going to crush those companies. And when we're 90 years old, we're going to be like, okay, remember how because now you're creating that generational wealth, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? You're giving them our children that fortitude to be tough and to be strong and to make good business decisions, which in our community, as you know, we didn't have that.
No.
Right? We didn't have that.
Listen, I didn't know anybody who went to college.
Right.
I didn't know, my version of college was what I saw, like I said, we saw a different world. Like, that was my college. That was my version of college, was a different world.
The Huxtables, right?
That's it. That was my version of college. It's like, I didn't know what college was like. I had no idea what to expect or what to anticipate, So yeah, I agree with you. Things are different. And not only am I doing it for me, I'm doing it for other people. And that's why, spreading my message, delivering my message, training people on a massive scale, influencing people on a massive scale. I mean, listen, the stuff that people complain and say, Eric, you're giving away too much free stuff. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm not giving away enough free stuff. I'm going to give them even more free stuff, even more. And I'm going to keep delivering. And, and that's what's caused me to be where I'm at today and have an audience and have a voice. And you know what? And then people, it's already paying off. It's that ripple effect, right? So someone else who's already who's been with me on the journey for 3 years is now inspiring their own group of people who are saying, hey, go back to here, learn from this guy. This is where I started. And so now they're the ones that are being interviewed and being recognized for their success in business in a short window of time. It started right here. So I know it's already paying off, and I'm very excited to see, the next 3, 4, 5 years is going to be like, how many more people we inspire. I actually, one of the things that I'll share with you, I'm working on, there's a venture capital company to raise money to help our community. And that's something that I'm working heavily on, and I'm putting it out there because, I want people to know it, and I'm really, really, really close. Like, I'm really close. I was able to successfully raise money for my own business recently due to COVID through a joint venture partner, but I want to raise money for other businesses and to help give to others. And so I want to do the same thing for other people. So that's,
So how's that going for you? Good so far?
So like I said, for me, for my business during COVID, I was able to successfully find a joint venture partner that put up a letter of credit for $10 million for us. Okay, so I'm very happy for that. But at the same token, I would much rather see that go towards investing in other people.
Right.
And that's really what I wanted. But it was the first step. It's kind of like showing that you can do this, right? Deliver gives you past performance in history. So that's the first step in that process.
Right.
And so I want to take that and expand on it. And I want to, I'd like to do 100 million that I can put back into the communities. And,
that's great.
So that's what I'm working on. I have a whole pipeline of people that I'm talking to every day, like you're saying, but in terms of small business all over the country, all over the world, in fact. I reach the world. I have people in every country that's reaching out, that's, again, wherever the United States is at and doing business, that's where I have audience. How about that?
That's what's up. I like that.
Yeah, wherever the United States is at. So, but, no, this is great. I'm happy. We got a chance to spend some time. I know I didn't get a chance to answer all my questions. Because, this is, for the time, right? This particular interview that we had today, the conversation was relevant to what's happening right now.
Right.
And we would have had a different conversation 2 months ago.
100%. So over the weekend, I didn't tell you this. Over the weekend, I went to DC.
Okay.
And I marched, and seeing 300,000 people, 400,000 on Saturday, and seeing from all walks of life, young, old, rich, poor, everything. And it was the most like a moment in time. And I stopped. I remember when I was walking with the march, I just looked around and you see a sea of people who are just like begging this country for a fair chance, right? Just for equal opportunity, right? And saying, and I saw an important quote or interview that someone did, and I don't know who it was, but they're saying how the system is broken. And I compare it to, in construction, if the building starts off to the left, it's going to stay to the left. On the 10th floor, it's going to be still, it's not going to get straight. No. It's going to stay to the left. Keep going to the left. So the person who was speaking, and this is when I thought about it, they said, listen, whatever happens, there should be a peaceful protest. And I'm all for peaceful, 100%. But they said, if somebody burns this place down to rebuild it, that's what needs to happen, right? Systematic racism needs to be torn down to its core, right? In order for something positive for it to be rebuilt. And you think about even in our Constitution now it says we are 3/5 of a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are considered property.
Right.
Black people was.
Sure.
So even in our Constitution, if you talk about restructuring and they're talking about defunding the police department and all these different things, and the health care is all messed up for our people, and even for small businesses, we have our own issues. We had to find a way, and I don't mean really burn it down, but figuratively burn the system down so that everyone has an equal opportunity, right? If we really want to become the greatest nation in the world, we have some work to do. And it's okay. It's okay to say that. But when you say it to some people, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that we're not the greatest nation in the world. Well, you can't be the greatest nation in the world based upon how we became a nation in the first place, right? We took away land from the indigenous Indians, right, that were here first, right? We colonized, so it came from a bad place to become who we are. Now, we came a long way, but we have a lot further way to go to become good and to be, and not to be divisive and not to be, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, what I say is, I think without cameras, without video, I think I would, as a person, would have a hard time believing some of the stories that people tell me are happening to them as well.
Right.
I would have a hard time grappling with the fact that this is real and it's not made up, it's not make-believe, And even the stuff that happened to me, and I shared this with my audience, I go, look, I get it. I mean, I've got no proof, right? It's my word against theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I understand that completely. But then someone says, well, that's what's called privilege. Is the fact that you didn't have to go through that. You didn't have to experience that. That's part of privilege.
Right.
And he summed it up that way. And then another thing that I read that someone said, because I posted a picture that said Black Lives Matter. And a friend of mine who we kicked it for a little bit, she put all lives matter, Asian, Filipino, something like that. And someone says that Black Lives Matter means it's anti-racism. Mm-hmm. All lives matter can't be anti-racism.
Right.
It's like, so all of these counterpoints, that people are making, I think it's really, I like it because it elevates the conversation. Listen, I'm not smart enough to think about all that stuff. Like you said, I'm just saying, I'm out here trying to build my business. And, I'm not playing victim. I think, again, these programs that you're in, the programs that we've been in, we've definitely taken advantage of the system to the best of our abilities. But could we have gone further? I think so. If things were different, and so I share that with people out there because I don't want it. They're always saying like you said, someone said we're playing the victim.
Not true at all.
I never said I was a victim. I never played a victim role. I did everything that I could to advance myself and my family that was possible. And I still do that. And I still will continue to do that.
All right. It's I don't know if we call ourselves Black, call ourselves African American. We are the youngest nation or group of people that's not recognized, right? Do United Nations, do anything, right? We are just here, right? We are brought over from Africa, and this is where we are. And this is what the system is, right? Let's talk about that. Expound upon what you just said. If it wasn't for cameras, nobody would believe how Mr. Floyd died, right? He would just be another statistic that died, right? Well, because there's video proof now. Same with Eric Garner, same with,
Ahmaud Arbery,
all the different. I could go down the list. That is hundreds, right? this happens to our people, to Black people, and and you go back to the reason why, right? Like it doesn't happen to, it won't happen to a Chinese kid, right? It won't happen to a Japanese kid. It won't happen to a Jewish kid. It won't happen to a Greek kid like this on this level. It won't happen to an Italian kid. And let me explain why. Because they have a nation behind them, right? So if you start killing a bunch of Chinese kids in the streets in America,
Right. Mm-hmm.
the country of China is going to say, what are you doing, America, to our kids, right? Or to our people that's in your country. Even if you do that to Mexican kids, right? Mexico is going to say something, right?
Mm.
So you follow where I'm going with this, right? We're here. Who do we yell back out to when people say, get out of our country if you're not happy? Where do we go, right? You can't go to Ghana and say, listen, I believe I'm Guyanese, come help me, right?
Right.
You can't go to Kenya, you can't go to Zimbabwe, but because we're easily, it's like the bully in the street who keeps pushing you, right? And be like, where you going to go tell? Who you going to tell? Who can we go tell? That's why it's so important. And like I say, social justice or social change has to come with economic change. You need one for the other. You can't have social change without economic change because we need to be empowered. We need to have resources to change things, right? Legislatively. So we need to reach back to our roots in Africa, understand it, and develop a bond and go to Africa and understand where we came from. And they need to understand who we are. So it works both ways, right? We need to reach back and they need to reach out and give us a hand, right? So there's so many issues here in this country. It doesn't mean it can't be fixed, but it's not going to be fixed overnight, right? This is a process, but we're tired of the process is what's killing us, right? We've been in this process for so long.
So what are you gonna what would you like for Congress to do?
In what area? I
mean, in terms of providing, like you said, the social change with the economic justice.
I'm all for. So the one thing I would do is I believe we should defund the police department, 100%. And this is why I believe that, right? Like I believe, and I don't think for 1 second, I think there's a small percentage of bad police officers out there, right? But I believe if you defund the police department and have private businesses that bid on police jobs or police contracts for the community policing, and then you have a overseer or oversight committee that watches the same thing as it would be in construction. So it's a 5-year contract, and they are responsible for the police cars, for trainings for the police, how many crimes have they solved. So all that will be written up in the spec section, so to speak, by that city, to say, okay, we're going to give you a 5-year, $100 million contract, and any kind of liability is now taken off of the mayor or the county legislative department or the city council people. The actual private company is responsible for making sure those police officers act in a way that is upright and that they're really there to do one thing, protect and serve, right? And I said this to someone the other day when I was in the interview. I said, name one other business or one other person or one other profession where you could be a jerk every day that you're at work. There's nowhere else but being a police officer. Like, and it's so crazy because police officer pulls you over, and if it's a great experience, you're shocked, right? If he doesn't give you a ticket, you're like, oh my God, I had the best police officer today. He asked me how I was doing and everything else. Most police officers are like, license registration. You'd be like, I didn't hear you, sir. Because I said, give me your license registration right now and shut up and quit talking, right? They don't have to have any customer service skills. They have a aura of do what I say and do it now or else, right? If you defund the police department and that contract, that private company has to work, or has to
prove themselves, to win themselves over.
To prove themselves, a lot of the issues, I believe, will be gone away and wiped away. A lot of them. That's step number one is I will speak to Congress and Senate about defunding the police department. And And then you're going to see even Black or brown businesses now that could be that private company that now is part of that community policing, right?
So much like a security contract.
Yes, just like that. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. And legislatively, they could set the rules on how they expect that police department to act in accordance with, right? I think that will be the first step.
If they defunded it, I would like to see Starbucks employees be police officers. I love those guys. Those guys are always great, right?
They're always so polite.
They're always so polite and so nice.
Yeah.
Sir, is there anything else I can do for you, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Floyd, did we upset you today, Mr. George Floyd? Are you comfortable in the back of that police car, sir? Watch your head.
We joke about Starbucks, but Starbucks employees overall are just, they're taught very well what customer service is.
No, I mean,
I
give it because I don't remember. I gave a talk one time, and I compared them to like Church's Chicken employees. So.
Yes.
That's why I get
it. Yeah. So what was your let me ask you this then, and I'm getting ready to speak in front of Congress and the Senate. So I have my notebook out. What are three things that you think I should include as you talk to small business owners and have been? What do you think? I know about the PPP loan, and I spoke to you about the second round of funding. Is a
one of the things that I heard on a podcast that I thought made a lot of sense to me was if whatever monies that the government were to spend or invest, and they said, so for example, I did some PPE sales this year, and my biggest gripe was the airlines were the ones that were actually price gouging. It wasn't the resellers. The airline companies were charging 500%, 700%, 800% increases. Even though the price of oil had dropped to negative, they were the ones price gouging, and they were using it. They were saying that, there's not as many commuter flights, and we're losing money. They might have been losing money on other books of business, but you don't get to offset that on this book of business. We don't get that luxury, right? It's like, I screwed up on this contract, so I'm going to charge this customer triple, right? You don't get to do that in any other line of work.
Right.
And so one of the things that I thought was interesting that someone said was, and it's kind of like on your same train of thought with defunding the police department, is how come if we're taking and we're putting all this money into businesses, how come we don't get stock shares in these companies? Like, why are we not owning parts of these businesses? Because guess what, Eli? Royal Caribbean, and I know this because a friend of mine has put 25 grand in them. They're down like 90%. So if I give Royal Caribbean $1 billion, I get to buy 50% of the company, whatever it's worth. Right? And American people gets those shares. So when Royal Caribbean goes back up and they're worth $100 billion, the American people just got a $90 billion return on their investment. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I really thought that was a great concept to apply to these large companies. I was like, that's a really novel approach. And they said we've done it before in the past. So there is groundwork for that to happen. Okay. Now, when it comes to small businesses, obviously we already know, like they've given up the funds. But like you said, it's challenging because we can't afford to pay and sometimes more than unemployment is paying. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, what does it look like? And I've heard from restaurant owners, a restaurant can't make profit unless they're like 70% full. What are they doing for those people? Right? A restaurant, it doesn't make profit at 50%.
Correct.
I mean, they're on the single digit percentages in terms of their profitability. Okay. How do we, what are we doing for them, and what does that look like? Because what they have to balance is, okay, I have to hire this guy. I have to get him to leave his house for more money than he's making sitting at home. But then I don't make enough money to pay him because I can only have a certain percent of occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing for those people? In terms of the contract side, what I've seen that's worked has been the government is doing OTAs, other transaction authorities, which are non-FAR type contract vehicles. Okay, they do a lot of that for technology. So the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations, they open up a way in which they can give out contracts to these IT companies and these large firms without following the FAR regulations. I would like to see more of that money going to small businesses. So this is a way in which they can give out contracts. 47% were non-compete, and we could put them in the hands of small businesses to do all of these jobs that, like you said, instead of giving it to, because I have a lot of companies that have janitorial services, right? But just like just got off a podcast with an interview with my oil guy, he goes, Eric, the big boys are sucking this stuff up. How does that help the small guy? So you did, for example, your company was your trash hauling. Why are you still bidding contracts? Forget bidding.
Mm-hmm.
A $100,000 contract will make a difference in your life, but it won't hurt the government.
No,
it won't hurt the government. So why not raise the standards and do more of these other type of non-FAR contract agreements, which allows them to sole source, to give out contracts to people, whoever they like. Why not do that for small businesses in or around, like, let's say, you worked at the airport before?
Yes.
Okay, when you work at the airport, don't they have regional programs for people that work higher within that region?
Correct.
Why can't we have programs like that fall under outside of the FAR window, so it doesn't have to be competed? You don't have to be in a special program to do it. You're within that region. Why are we like? And again, this may hurt you guys, but it's like, okay, why do I hire a company out of DC to come and oversee a project in Miami when I've got 50 freaking small business in Miami that like clean all day?
Right.
I mean, honestly,
I agree.
It's like it helps the taxpayers, right? You're getting the guy who's actually going to self-perform the job and do the work.
Right.
But because of the regulations, we don't have a way in which a vehicle in which we could give them a contract. Right. So why not? But we do have vehicles, but we just don't use them for that reason. So we use them for the things that we want to buy, right? And not for the things that really people, like the small business you're talking about, need. Why not take advantage of some of these vehicles that were created? And that's one of the things that I'm really big on is I say to people, look, I do these things. They didn't create these vehicles for me. I just use them. They created for other people. I just happen to learn them and use them. But don't say you created that for me. They did not create this vehicle for Eric Coffey, the black kid coming out of Goose. No. I learned about this vehicle and I said, oh, I think I can use that. So the same way we can buy IT projects, and I'll send you, I can send you whatever you want. But why not use some of these non-traditional bidding vehicles that we already have established, okay, to make rapid awards to small businesses, okay, that are within the region of which the area is being impacted? Why do we still continue to have large companies have to, like you said before, get away from being a sub, become a prime? Okay, why do we have these large companies? Because that's what hurt me. I've never lost money working for the federal government. I got almost bankrupt being a sub to two big companies who never had the right intentions of paying us.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we like that? To me, that doesn't need to happen. And at some of these, because we showed it throughout the pandemic that we were able to, if you had to source PPE, you bought it from any and everybody who could give it to you. Right? They didn't care. Hey, you got PPE? We'll buy it. What's the difference? We did it when it was convenient.
Right.
We could do it all the time.
Right.
We demonstrated that. We demonstrated as a nation we were able to step up to the challenge. Why can't we do this all the time? Why do we have to put so much red tape in the way?
So many regulations.
Why? We don't have to. We do that intentionally. I don't want a job. I don't want people to have to hire me. I want this to be a straight up process. Even Eli, you know, one of the things I'll tell you it's hard to sell to a state. You have to get registered to that state. To sell to a city, you got to get registered to that city. Why? Why isn't there one registration? Why do you make people register thousands of times? Because thousands of cities. To sell to any city, you have to get registered for that city.
Yeah. If you're a minority in New York, you should be a minority in my skin color in DC.
And your income is the same, your company is the same, your money. Why I gotta go get registered over here? Like, and so that actually is a problem that the federal government addressed because I saw a request. And again, everything that I'm telling you, I'm referencing IT now because what's happening is someone at the top level says we're falling behind to the Chinese. So we have to create avenues in which we can bring our best and brightest IT innovators into the government sector without having to jump through all the hurdles, the traditional hurdles. So they've created pathways now to bring in satellite companies and laser companies and all this stuff. Right. But for the rest of us, we're still doing the traditional path. So what I'm referencing are things that are already happening in other sectors of the marketplace that could be happening in the same sectors for which we buy these standard commodity items. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? But because their interest, right, is on Space Force and space exploration and cybersecurity, they've created pathways for those areas. So it's not that we don't have it. It's not that we don't exist. It's not that we don't thinking about this stuff. I'm not telling you something that's novel because I've already seen it in writing on a government document that says, how do we make the registration process simpler? They had that on a government solicitation, right? Air Force Works was asking, but they were asking specifically because they wanted companies to do more SIPR work, small business innovation research, small business technology transfer. They wanted those guys to get through the red tape and the weeds, and they wanted like a streamlined process because it would serve their purpose. But why not for the rest of us create a streamlined process? Just like I just like, why not do it for everybody?
Right.
Why not do it for everybody? Why just IT? Why not do it for janitorial? Why not do it for people selling products? Why not do it for the people that are providing services? Why not just do it for everybody? You get me? Like
100%.
So that's stuff that I see that I'm like, I don't really understand this stuff. You know why? You know, I actually on one of my contracts is funny because I actually tell people not to do state and city work because of the payment processes. I go, they don't like to pay you fast.
Yeah.
And it's like what you said about construction, but it's not even just construction. You know, I provided like some sanitizers to the state, and they were like, "Oh, we'll pay you in 5 days." 40 days later, you still ain't paid. Like, yo, y'all done already used my stuff.
It's already gone. Like, can I get paid?
But they already used it.
It's gone.
It's gone now. You know, like, can I get paid?
Hands with it. It's gone. While they talking to you on the phone, they
squirt about.
Well, Eric, you know, I'm gonna see what I could do for you. I'm gonna see you get that check out.
Hey man, you know, so it's like I think, and that's a common theme. I can show you right now on my website an article that I wrote about that. Why does it have to be that way? Why do states and municipalities why can't they have the same payment plans as the federal government? Why they can't pay in 14 days?
Right.
Why can't there be laws that say, hey, if you guys don't pay this small business, if I'm a registered minority or a small business in your county, in your state, why do I have to wait 45, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days to get paid?
All right. I'm going to back you up with this, right? Check this out. So let me say it like this, because you speaking to the choir here. I say it all the time. When people get in business, the first thing they think they need to do in our community is go out and get their MBE certificate so they can start doing state work. And they think it's the path to success. And I say all the time, and I'm going to say it to everybody listening now, doing any municipality work or any state work is a pathway to being broke. That's what that is, okay? Because let me explain why. The state or county, right, or any municipality, what they want is the lowest bidder. Mm-hmm. So you are always trying to beat someone and minimizing the quality of your work to be the lowest bidder. Mm-hmm. The pathway to success, and then on top of that, okay, so let's stay right there. So you're the lowest bidder, so you have this much. You already went down to like single digits and gross profit. Yes, we ain't talking about net profit, but gross profit. You're already in single digits. Then you add your overhead, that shrinks a little bit more, right? Then you add in on top of that, anything that might your paperwork, your administrative costs. Because when you do state work, and you know this, Eric, there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done just to get paid, right? And so the owner doesn't have time to do it, so then he hires somebody to do that work, right? Mm-hmm. So now you have that employee, that project manager, that project coordinator, that assistant who's doing that work, which shrinks that job gross profit even more and more. Mm-hmm. The key to success is to work for companies that does not have all those regulations on it, right? That you talking to the person that could pay you just like that, right? So in your case, you selling hand sanitizer. You want to talk to the buyer, and then he could cut your check, right? Whoever that is, that's who you want to talk to. If you're dealing with Walmart, you want to talk to the buyer in Bentonville, Arkansas, who could say, listen, we already got your check ready. It's on the way to you. You know what I mean? You send your invoice in, you're going to have your check within 2 or 3 weeks, and that's what it is, right? They're going to wire it into your... But in our heads, sometimes we think backwards. Well, we think, it's a state, so the state's going to pay us. It's a city, the city going to pay us. Man, I'll tell you like this. Hire a city employee, hire a state employee for government, you're going to be like, what did you get done this week, Bob or Bill or Sue or Tammy? Mm-hmm. You know how when you call the state employee hotline, they be like, I'm going to put you on hold, I'm going to send you an email, and then you wait a week later for your unemployment or whatever it is. They have very few employees that work in municipality are good for a private company because they have their sense of urgency. It's not they're bad employees. They just know they can put off the work until next week. Right. Because they don't have to get back to you right away. No. So it's the same thing when it comes to your money. They don't got to send it to you right away. You'll get your money when Tammy, who's sitting over there, decides to get it from Bob, who had it for 3 weeks on his desk, your pay app, and now she's going to have it for another 4 weeks. So now you're looking at already 7 weeks, and you still ain't get paid, but you have to go one more step after it's her desk. So it's 4 sets of eyes or 3 or 4 sets of eyes that got to look at your paperwork and it's going to sit on their desk for forever because doing state work is not small business friendly. That's the moral of the story. Amen. It's a pathway to being broke.
Hold on. I'm going to show you something now. Hold on. Wait. Watch this now. Hold on. Okay. December the 5th, 2017. You see that?
Wow.
See the title? Hold on. Wait, hold on, wait. What does it say right here? Pay slow, more times than pay fast.
Yeah.
Allows for underbidding, low bid process. Yep. Awards projects without securing the funding.
Right.
Okay, no blackball list. Prime contractors can abuse you and never be removed from the approved vendors list.
Boom. Yeah, you're not going no further than that.
I ain't gonna go further. Hey, hold up. Funding is tied to state or federal grants and programs. Inconsistent bid process. Can cancel a contract for no apparent reason. Big enough to screw you, small enough to overextend and not pay you. What else you want?
That's it. That's the pathway to broke.
people come to me and they say, Eric, but they told me I got to get my MBE, I got to get my CSBE, I got to get my, and I said, who told you that? Are they somebody successful?
Yeah.
Because just the fact that someone told you that, tell them to show you, I want to show me what you did and how you did it and how it worked.
You know who told them that? They went to a matchmaker somewhere, and it was a state matchmaker, and they was like, we got over $150 million coming out this year alone.
They didn't say that. They said that to yours too?
That's what's going on.
They say, and you know what I tell people? I said, all right, this is what you do. Go to the small business group meeting, right, at that city, at that state, and ask them about people being paid on time.
Yeah. And watch the room.
I said, go to the meeting. Like I said, not the matchmaker one where they put up the big numbers. Go to the meeting where the council is, right? When they talk about this little participation for minority, ask them about how many people get paid on time and let them go. So, no, listen, I'm glad. That was good, Eli. I like that, man. I'm glad that to me, I like that comment because it's never worked. I've never been able, it's never worked. It's not, and going back to what you said about even the sanitizer. So I had some gloves and I said, look, listen guys, we started selling to resellers. You know what the difference is? A reseller wires your money and then you send him the product.
Yeah.
So when I get my wire, then I'll put your order out to ship. You can run a business like that all day.
Right. Right.
I get the money, then I ship the product.
Isn't that what Amazon does?
That's what Amazon does.
They get their money first.
Before they ship you anything.
Yes. They get their money first. That's how we start. That's called American business right there.
They like close out for these people, man. Close out. Listen, close these people out, man. They've been listening to us for about an hour, 45 minutes now. I appreciate the conversation. We got to close out these wonderful people.
We'll do a part 2. So,
okay.
We'll get back on here and we'll chop it up some more.
And you know what? We go on live session, and in that way, people can interject.
Right.
I mean, I flip on the live switch, and it's good stuff.
They be blowing it up.
Oh man, listen! I tell you what. Say some salutation on this, and it will flip on live. Say salutation on this one, and then watch it flip on live.
All right.
Hey, say salutation.
All right.
Tell the people that thank you for today for coming on the podcast. Leave with some kind words.
All right. Listen. So I want to say to all the other small businesses out there and those who are in the grind, continue to do what you do, and because 95% of Americans work for people who have companies less than 500 people. So we need to continue to forge ahead and, brush the dirt off ourselves, off our knees every single day. So I know the struggle, and the struggle is real, but the other side of the struggle is success. So I appreciate being able to spend time with you guys, and hopefully, I have, instilled a little bit of wisdom out there to help people continue to be successful. And Eric, I'm looking forward to the next time me and you could sit down, because the podcast didn't even seem like a podcast. It was, you're a great interviewer, and hopefully, from here we continue to build in your business. I want to see you be successful, my brother, and continue to do the things that you do. So you're an extraordinary. I must say this about you. I can already tell you're an ordinary man doing extraordinary things. So keep doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You inspire me, and I'm looking forward to you just continue to climb that rung of the ladder to success.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on today. Great interview, lots of fun. I mean, we laughed, we joked, we talked about serious issues, we talked about business. I mean, we ran the whole gamut. So people are going to get a lot of information out of this. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in today.
Eli Smith was a person with a mission. He lived for purpose. He continues to strive. He loves growing businesses. And I think it's exemplary how he demonstrates what someone can do regardless of race, age, regardless of where they're located. You also have that same ability with you. And what we're trying to do with all of the content that I produce is encourage, support, be a mentor, be a sounding board to people out there who are wanting to attempt this. Speaking of that, if you have not already tuned in and listened to the episode with 16-year-old Wesley Ross, the military contractor, definitely want to encourage you to listen, tune into that episode. It's been so incredible. I've heard so many positive stories from people, how it's impacted their lives, changed their thought processes, got them out of their comfort zones to push past their fears and want to take on their challenges. Thanks for tuning in as always. If you're not following us on Instagram, it's Govcon Giants on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group and a LinkedIn group as well at Govcon Giants. So take a look at all of these things. We are wherever the people are going to be at, providing with the information, the content that they need when they need it. Thanks so much as always. Looking forward to the upcoming podcast in 2020 and 2021. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in as always. Much love. I'll talk to you next time.